Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Guys, welcome back to r/MaliciousCompliance, where people get exactly what they ask for, and a lot of the times not in a good way. My friends, I hope you're having a superb day today, and the lineup of stories today are super duper satisfying, so sit back, grab your favorite drink, and enjoy the stories. And do hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. So, for a little bit of background, I used to work in a call center, selling vacations for a major hotel chain. And let me tell ya, my boss was a huge jerk. All he did all day long was walk around and make sure that everybody had their shirt tucked in. Now, no customers ever saw us, and we were secluded from every other department because we were really loud. There was literally no reason to tuck in shirts, but the boss for some reason thought that this would help us sell better. He would say, if you dress the part, you will be the part. Now, I do want to note that I was the top salesman on the night shift and third overall in the company, and that didn't help at all. So I come into work on my birthday, and my friend runs up to me and yells, "Hey, happy birthday," right in front of my boss's office. He then looks up and says, "Hey." Now I'm thinking he's gonna say happy birthday since he no doubt heard her. But instead, he looks up and says, "What did I tell you about tucking in your shirt?" He then proceeds to do the hand signal like he's tucking in an imaginary shirt. So I say, "Okay, no problem. I just have to put my stuff down real quick and I'll take care of it." So I then walk over to my desk, which takes approximately 7 seconds to get to. I go to put my stuff down, and as I am, he comes up behind me again and says, "Hey, I said to tuck in your shirt, not to walk to your desk." So I quickly tuck it in, and as he's walking away, I say, "Sorry, I just had to put my stuff down first." And he walks by me like I never said a word. So immediately, I go and bust out the HR manual and check out the rule on tucked shirts. So it turns out that there is a loophole. It says you must tuck in all shirts except for a Hawaiian shirt. So right after work, I march myself to Walmart and buy 10 of those and wear the most obnoxious looking Hawaiian shirt the next day. The second I walked in, the boss looks me up and down, glared, and turned around and walked away. When everybody asked why I was wearing such a ridiculous shirt, I tell them about the loophole. And within a week and a half, my office was wearing Hawaiian shirts. It drove my boss crazy. And it's all within the guidelines outlined by the company policy. Guys, I absolutely love this story. It's brilliant. And what makes it even better is that the boss knew he couldn't say anything about that ridiculous shirt. Guys, another loophole would have been going to work without pants or underwear on. You can't force me to tuck in my shirt if there's nothing to tuck my shirt into. Checkmate, my good sir. So, our neighbors can be funny buggers. They can be nice one minute and moody the next. There was a rickety old fence between our properties which I owned. My neighbors have been nagging me for years that we fix the fence and have been giving us grief on and off about it. We'd patched it up a few times, but didn't really have the money to totally replace an 80-foot fence and post at that time. The neighbors have 10 dogs and spend a lot of money on landscaping their garden. They demand that we replace the fence because they need a secure boundary for the dogs and made it very clear that they were not contributing to the cost. Now that's not unreasonable, but they came off as demanding, so that rubbed me the wrong way. So generally in the UK, there are no HOA rules on old builds, so I can replace the wooden fence with anything we like as long as it's on our land and no more than 2 meters high. So we saved up enough money last month and we got a quote and arranged for a company to replace the fencing. I told the neighbors and picked a day that they would be at work so not to ruin the surprise. So when they get home, they found the wooden fence and the wooden post have been replaced with 6-foot concrete posts and a wall of concrete panels. Now they look out of their kitchen onto what resembles the Berlin Wall. I also made sure the smooth face of the concrete panels are pointing towards us. Now, they haven't approached us about it yet, but my husband told me that he could see the wife in her garden from his office window, and she had a face like thunder. Now, I really wish OP posted a picture of this because I'd love to see what this concrete fence looks like. I also love this comment right here. Put a watchtower up as well to add to the Berlin atmosphere. And you also can't forget the razor wire. So, this is the story of my former employer. Now, my employer at the time was a very small company. It was my boss and 5 employees. We worked in a very specific industry where 90% of the work was on construction sites. Finding a well-qualified person in this very specific industry is a very, very hard thing to do. My boss was the kind of boss that everyone hates. He would cut corners to keep overhead costs down, and on top of that, he would constantly overbook on jobs, like signing contracts for 6 projects during the same week, knowing full well that he only has 5 employees. which would result in employees often working 14-hour days or more, which really sucks when you're on salary, as we didn't get paid overtime. Now, his worst attribute by far was approving time off and then during your time off, calling or texting you, asking if you would be willing to cut your vacation short. Sometimes, he would even ask you to move your time off to the next week or next month, when the workload lightens up, which almost never does due to his constant overbooking. So after working at this company for 6 years, I got used to all of the aforementioned annoyances. But then things changed. My son was born. In the months leading up to his birth, I made it very clear that I would be taking a 5-week unpaid leave of absence once he arrives. The state that we're in allows new parents to take up to 8 weeks of unpaid leave. I told my boss that I know 8 weeks would be a huge strain on such a small company, so I was willing to take 5 weeks. But those 5 weeks would be completely off the grid, meaning don't call me, don't text me, don't ask me anything work-related because I won't answer. I told him I was going to be spending time with my family, and he 100% agreed. So, fast forward to my son's birth. He was born on a Friday, and after a short stay in the NICU, he was released on Monday and we took him home. So Tuesday morning, I wake up to a missed call, an email, and 3 texts all from my boss asking me to call him back right away. For reasons still unknown to me to this day, I call him back and he tells me that there was a slight emergency as he screwed up the scheduling and has a job with no employee at it, and he asked if I could maybe come into work that same day and also work a couple of more days that week until he finds someone to cover it. Now at this point, I lost it. I literally felt something in my neck snap and I unleashed a verbal assault on him that I still feel bad about now. A year later, I ended my rant with an apology. As much of a dick move as it was for him to call me in that situation, it was still completely unprofessional of me to say what I said to him. Now obviously he wasn't a big fan of what I said, and after a small rant of his own, he ended with the sentence that made this whole story possible. He said, "Listen, you've got a pretty good job at this company that most people your age would be thankful for. I'd be impressed if you could find a better job in this field because I've been doing this for 30 years. And I know how small this industry is, and trust me, good jobs like yours don't come very often, so think about that." So we end the call and I did what he said. I thought about it. So after thinking about it for 30 seconds, I get out of bed, sat down in front of my computer, and start looking for job postings. 5 weeks later, my time off came to an end, and my first day back, I came into work, walked to my boss's office, and handed him a piece of paper. My boss said to me, "What's this?" I told him, "So I thought about what you said about how you'd be really impressed if I could find a better job than the one I have here, so I did." So my boss reads over what I handed to him, and it was a job offer from a competitor for the exact same job that I was performing, but at a 25% higher salary. It also had an extra paid week of vacation compared to what I had, and a stipulation that the company policy was that work hours are capped at 8 hours per day. Meaning, once I hit 8 hours on the job, I pack up and leave until tomorrow. No exceptions. So my boss then looks at me and says, "Well then, can I have a day to crunch some numbers and come up with a counteroffer?" I told him don't bother. I just wanted you to see it because I know you wouldn't have believed me otherwise. So at that, I gave him my 2-week notice and left for whatever job site I was on that day. That was a year ago, and I couldn't be happier with my new job. I get to spend a lot of time with my boy, and that's the best job perk there is. For all you bosses and managers out there, don't screw around with your employees, especially the good ones. Treat them how you'd want to be treated. Most employees don't quit their jobs, they quit their bosses. And that, my friends, is so true. A bad boss will ruin a good job in a heartbeat. Guys, this is the story of my life. So I read this story and immediately thought, wow, this guy sounds exactly like my old boss who treats everybody like they're replaceable, and he often overloads work as well, forcing everyone to work overtime. And the crazy thing is, if you didn't want to work overtime, he'd say, "What? You don't like money? You don't like money? You should be thankful that I'm giving you guys work. I get 100 resumes a day, from people who want to work here." And no, he did not get 100 resumes a day. You know why? Because the company I worked for was terrible. Like, my boss was basically holding crap in his hands and trying to tell us that it was gold. Okay, so a little bit of backstory. This story happened a really long time ago, back in the 90s, when cell phones weren't a common thing. Now, I hate when strangers touch me. I get really uncomfortable and freaked out by it. With that said, I did take a couple of self-defense classes a couple of years back. Not too much, but enough to know how to strike a punch. So this story happens in the local go-to discount store that rhymes with small tart. I was wearing a classic white t-shirt at the time, not remotely any hue of blue, and no bright yellow name tag on. Anyways, I was casually browsing the store, putting stuff in my cart. At some point, I decide I really don't want this random item, so naturally I go put it back because I'm a decent human being that doesn't leave stuff laying randomly. And this is where Karen comes in. Now, at first, she proceeds to snap her fingers and say, "Hey, you, come over here." Now, at that, I ignore her, thinking there's no way she's talking to me because why would she? I'm obviously not an employee. Now, it turns out that Karen didn't like this. I tried to walk away from her towards the register to pay for my goods. So as I'm walking away, she proceeds to walk up behind me, grab me by the shoulder screaming, "Hey, I'm talking to you." Now, as I mentioned, I'm a no touchy-touchy kind of person. And I'm not saying what I did is necessarily okay, but I acted on pure instincts from what I learned in self-defense. So mid-spin around, I yell, "Back off," as loud as I can, and proceed to give a mixture of a shove and a punch. Now, the result of the punch was Karen falling backwards and proceeded to yell even more obscure things. I said, "What the heck are you doing, lady?" Karen says, "Did you just punch a paying customer?" Now at this, I'm dumbfounded, and Karen says, "You just assaulted me. I will have you fired and arrested." Now luckily a manager does come walking over and he says, "What's going on here?" Karen says, "Your stupid employee just ignored me and then proceeded to assault me completely unprovoked. You need to call the police." Now at this point, I'm screaming back and said, "Hey, you assaulted me first, so of course I'm gonna defend myself." The manager then looks at me and says, "Yeah, this person doesn't work here." Karen says, "Don't you dare defend your employee. I will not hesitate to sue." The manager then repeats, "He still doesn't work here. Never has as far as I know." So at this point, Karen says, "Call the police right now. I'm gonna wait here until you call the police. I'm not leaving until they come and arrest her for assaulting me." Now this is where the malicious compliance comes in. The manager then gave me a knowing look and a smile. It turns out the store has CCTV cameras pointing just down this aisle. The manager then looks at her and says, "I'd be happy to call the police for you. I'm sure they'll be here soon." I tell him, "Look, I really just want to buy my stuff and go home." Karen screams, "You are not going anywhere. You attacked me. You're lucky I'm having the police deal with you instead of beating you right here." So long story short, the manager does call the police, and two nice gentlemen in uniforms were with us within half an hour asking what happened. Now at this, Karen proceeds to give a sob story about how she accidentally mistook me for an employee when she politely wanted to know where something was. And then she told the police that out of nowhere, I proceeded to hit her and kick her multiple times when she was down. So the officers then ask for my side of the story, and while I'm telling them what really happened, she keeps screaming how I'm a filthy liar and she's a poor victim, etc, etc. So out of nowhere, the manager then tells the police that he can quickly pull up the footage from the CCTV, and the police were more than eager to see it. At this point, Karen's face goes white, so one officer stays with us while the other one went to go take a look at the footage. He then comes out saying, "Well, lady, it looks like you assaulted her." And with that, she simply defended herself. At no point in time did I see her either punching or kicking you when you were down, like you said. Now, this results in her arguing with the cop, telling him that he's blind and he needs to open his eyes more. At this point, Karen tries to walk away, but she dug herself so deep at this point. The officers scream at her to stop walking away from them, and it ends with her lunging and flailing her arms at one of the officers when he goes to grab her, and she was taken back to the station with them. Apparently, attempting to assault an officer isn't very popular. Now, I have no clue what happened to her, but I was free to go and got a coupon for $35 for the store. I saw the manager a couple of times in the store afterward, and apparently this crazy woman had been banned from the store, but he hasn't heard anything new either. The funny thing is, if she didn't demand the police be called, I would have been happy to just grab my shopping and go that day. I would have loved to have seen her face when the manager was like, "But officer, we have CCTV footage." Guys, not all heroes wear capes, okay? Some heroes come in the form of a friggin' CCTV camera, and Karen got exactly what she deserved that day, which is a nice ride in the paddy wagon. So this story happened yesterday, as I was returning home from a 2-week trip to Germany. The final leg of the flight departed from Paris, where I had this lovely interaction with the agents, whom, despite me knowing are not TSA, I still refer to as TSA in my mind. While going through security at the airport, I know the drill. Belts off, jacket off, and take my laptop out of my bag. So I submit to the X-ray 4 trays. One with my carry-on, one with my laptop by itself, one with my belt, watch, and jacket, and one with my personal item. Think of fanny pack. I'm then randomly selected for further screening, as I have a Lebanese last name and a beard. I'm always randomly selected. And the agent berates me for putting all my electronics together. I point out that I took my laptop out of the bag as per standard procedure, and the agent says that I must take out every electronic device from my carry-on and put each of them in an individual tray, and that I'm being sent to the back of the line to do so. Now here comes the malicious compliance. There are 2 things that this French TSA agent is unaware of. The first thing is that I'm a videographer by trade, and I was in Europe to cover an event with video footage and interviews. The second thing is that Air France changed my flight times, so my 2-hour layover became a 10-hour layover, which I'm not particularly happy about. So I'm being sent to the end of the line and I have to submit each electronic item individually? Sure, no complaints from me. So 2 camera bodies, 1 drone, 1 GoPro, 4 lenses, 9 batteries, and 2 lavalier microphones later, there's no more space on the treadmill. People behind me are complaining that they're gonna miss their flight because I'm taking so long. There's nothing I can do. I'm just following the orders I received. And at this point, I've only unpacked my photography vest and my fanny pack. The treadmill then starts moving, some space clears up, and then I put on additional trays. And that's when I open my carry-on bag. Again, I'm in Europe for work. I didn't bring any nice clothes or shoes or anything. All my personal effects are in my checked-in luggage. The carry-on is filled exclusively with electronics. I still have 4 microphones, 2 recorders, lights, additional lenses, battery chargers, video monitors, audio monitors, and drone controllers. Once I open my carry-on, it's very clear for everyone within eyesight that I'm not even a third of the way done. They asked for 1 electronic per tray, so I'll just occupy this entire checkpoint by myself then. The people behind me in line are literally jumping and screaming about their missed flight to the point where the security agents have to leave their post to control the line. Someone in the non-uniform suit appears and talks to the agent who sent me to the back of the line. That's when the unthinkable happened. The agent comes up to me and says that there is not going to be a need for me to continue separating my electronics, and I could just submit my entire carry-on bag as a single item. I asked the person, "Are you sure? Because it's no bother at all. I can keep unpacking here all day long." They insist that it's not necessary, but I still have over 20 trays at this point occupying the treadmill. So I then go through the metal detector. I spend some minutes recovering and repacking everything, and based on the amount of fuming passengers, I'd like to think I contributed to that airport reviewing their stance on x-raying individual electronics. Oh, I would have hated to be behind OP in that line. But hey, he was just doing what he was told, right? And that, my friends, is r/malicious compliance. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the stories today. And if you did, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, do hit that subscribe button. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, I'll link it right here. An idiot hosts a 4th of July party on OP's private property, inviting hundreds of people. Check it out if you haven't, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I love you.